I think it's fair to say that the way that Texas Tech has responded to a Sweet 16 run in Mark Adams' first year as head coach has been uh, rather disappointing. We are 10 games into conference play. Texas Tech has one conference win. They have 9 losses. They are currently 9th in offensive efficiency. They are last in defensive efficiency, last in effective field goal percentage, last in opponent effective field goal percentage, last in turnover rate, last in three-point shooting percentage, and last in opponent three-point shooting percentage. That's not going to win you very many games in the Big 12, and that's held true for Texas Tech 10 games into the conference slate. But despite all the bad, and there has been a lot of bad, I'm not asking you to ignore it, but despite all of it, there has been one glimmer of hope. One moment, one game where Texas Tech really looked like a complete team that could compete in the Big 12. And that was when they did what was seemingly the impossible and pulled off a 23-point comeback against Iowa State to win in overtime. So what was it about this turnaround? What was it about this game that Texas Tech implemented to bring them such improbable success? And how can they continue to replicate this in the rest of the conference slate? Well, I think I've got an idea, but teams are already starting to counter it as we saw in the Baylor game. So today I want to take it back to basics and show you what Texas Tech is doing to make their offense go and what they're doing to survive on the defensive end and how they can hopefully parlay that into some success with just a couple of Big 12 games remaining. Before we get into the content, I want to give a big shout out to BHW Law Firm for sponsoring this video and the Gambling Gauchos. The Iowa State game was not all good. In fact, to pull off a comeback, you have to put yourself in a deficit, and Texas Tech did that. They looked like they were going to get blown out of the building until about 12 minutes left in the game when the Red Raiders started to rally. And part of what spurred on that rally was on the defensive end of the floor. Defense really drove the comeback for Texas Tech. Obviously, they had to get to the basket, get to the free throw line, and make shots to chip into the lead, but it was led by the defensive end, specifically Texas Tech's pick and roll defense. In the midst of the comeback against Iowa State, Texas Tech had what I thought was truly one of their best defensive possessions of the season. It really looked like a Texas Tech team that we've seen in the past. They're aggressive, they're denying the ball screens, they're forcing it across the court, and that's exactly what Texas Tech does to Iowa State here. Iowa State tries to set a screen on the wing. Kerwin Walton stays aggressive, he fights over it, then there's a show screen at the top. Texas Tech blitzes that. They're denying the top of the key. And so now all Iowa State has is that number 4 in the corner, but it's a tough cross-court pass which Lamar Washington takes care of and takes it to the other end of the floor. Baylor is a nightmare matchup for a lot of defenses in the country because they have so many guys on the team that can run the offense and also create their own shots. So the defensive game plan can't exactly be copy and pasted from Iowa State to Baylor, but what we did see was that Baylor attacked Texas Tech in the pick and roll, and they did so pretty shamelessly. So here's a really basic pick and roll action by Baylor. You can see it being set up here with Keontae George as the ball handler. And as you see, Lamar Washington goes over the screen, but then Kevin Obanor presses. He doesn't drop, which leads to probably the easiest bucket of Baylor's season. But playing and drop created issues for Texas Tech as well. There you see Keontae George getting a wide open look when he gets the matchup with Kevin Obanor, and here Adam Flagler gets a screen set well before he's at the three-point line and then ends up wide open for a free throw jumper. Earlier in the season, I made a video showing that the pick and roll was Texas Tech's key to success on the offensive end, but what I think we're seeing is that's true on the defensive end as well. There are so many scorers and ball handlers in the Big 12 that if you want to be successful on the defensive end, you have to stop the pick and roll. Texas Tech did that against Iowa State, they didn't against Baylor. Another thing that benefited Texas Tech greatly in the Iowa State game was something they've been doing for years, which is just playing aggressive on the defensive end, jumping passing lanes, running press looks, creating steals. This is Texas Tech's bread and butter on the defensive end, and we just haven't seen it as much this season, but when we have, it's led to success. Contrast those plays with what we see here. Texas Tech runs a press look, but then Baylor just drives effortlessly in transition and gets a wide open shot under the basket. Texas Tech's no-middle defense over the past couple of years has seemed to have almost a spidey sense of where the ball is and where it's going at any given defensive possession. But this year, there's just been more mental lapses, missed assignments, open men than I've seen in a long time from this basketball program. And Baylor especially really highlighted some of the issues that are happening with the off-ball defensive adjustments. Here's a play from the Baylor game that really stood out to me. I want you to watch number 33 for Baylor. There's just no man in front of him, and so he just walks underneath the basket and has a wide open dunk. That's just too easy. Another play that stood out to me was this possession. You can see Jalen Bridges cutting to the basket. He's looking for the pass. He doesn't get it, but that's Jalen Tyson's man, and I don't think he realizes it. He stays right there next to the free throw line while Jalen Bridges leaks out to the corner and finds himself wide open for a corner three. There's really no other way to put it. Texas Tech is at the bottom of the Big 12 right now. Their absence from the upcoming NCAA tournament is all but finalized. But if the Red Raiders want to stack some sort of success, give themselves something to hang their hat on when they look back at this season, it's got to start on the defensive end of the ball. Texas Tech has to recover some of its identity that it's played with over the last couple of seasons. Possessions like that Iowa State pick and roll one, where it's chaos, where there's good switching, where there's awareness of assignments, where there's aggression, where there's going over screens, where there's fighting. Just something to resemble the Texas Tech defense that we've seen in the past. Texas Tech's half-court offense is just not good enough to compete at a high level at the rate that they're turning the ball over and not generating turnovers on the other end. And so if this thing is going to go, if Texas Tech is going to pick up some wins down the stretch, it's going to have to start by recovering some of the defensive identity that Texas Tech has become known for. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of where Texas Tech is at right now, although it may have been painful. If you did, leave a like on this video, subscribe to the Gambling Gauchos on YouTube, give us a follow on Twitter, and then listen to us wherever you get podcasts, regardless of what happens down the stretch. We'll have more content like this coming your way, covering the Red Raiders. Love y'all.